Hello, brothers and sisters, and welcome to day 77 of the Chronological Read Through the Bible. We've come a long way, haven't we? Well, today's reading and commentary picks up in Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 10 through chapter 25. And though each of these chapters are shorter chapters, it's a lot of content. I don't want to linger too long today on this passage. I know some of my last few days have been rather lengthy commentaries, and there was really a lot to be said. It still is for today as well. But today's really just speaks for itself in so many ways. I wanted to start out today by reading a short passage out of the book of Matthew. Matthew chapter 22, and starting with verse 35. One of them, a lawyer, asked him a question, testing him. Teacher, which is the greatest commandment of the law? And he said to him, You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and foremost commandment. The second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend the whole law and the prophets. As we move through the law here, we have aspects of battles that are being taken place, of what to do in a battle, what to do in the case of an animal that you find on the way, that you see your neighbor's animal has gone astray, and how to deal with that. And it's in many ways it's logical laws, but we oftentimes see people misuse this. It's even like if you've left your coat in the field and your neighbor finds it, what he's supposed to do with that. Is he then just supposed to say finders keepers? We kind of grew up with hearing things like that among our society, but the Bible clearly tells us the neighbor is to take this, take care of it, and give it back to you when you come searching for it. Never even says that you're supposed to compensate them if they take your cow and take care of it for a couple of days before you realize that the neighbor has it. It's very interesting to see how this all unfolds. And I mentioned some of these parts to you before, and this is why I'm not covering an in-depth commentary today. But I did want to focus on, again, where it speaks of the gleaners of the field, the people going out to gather what has been left behind after the harvesters have passed through the field. You know, today you can go by a farm, a field, after the harvesters run through it. You can see all through the field little bits and pieces that have been left. And I know today there are some communities that do allow, or individual farmers that do allow gleaners to pass through the field and collect what's been left behind. But that's not commonplace. And oftentimes the people who do that are gathering it for the people who are in poverty. But the scriptures really leave a room for someone to have their integrity intact. The gleaner could come behind. It was very common practice, and they had produce which they could collect, but they had to do a little bit of the work to do that. We think of the story of Ruth and Naomi. Ruth, of course, goes out to do the gleaning, to pick up what's been left behind, and we're going to get there. If you're not familiar with the story, it's coming up. And because Boaz's heart early on is soft towards Ruth, he tells the harvesters to leave a little extra. Imagine if we were doing that today. It was a way, though, for the poor, for those in poverty, to be taken care of, yet to maintain their integrity. And the aspect of loaning money, some have said that this really was not in reference to like somebody coming and saying, hey, I have a business idea that I want to float by you, and then you loan them money and not get interest back for that. I don't know if that is just for self-interest trying to protect that or not. I will say that I know of cases still today in the Jewish community where if a young man said, I have a business idea, he would go before a group of elders or leaders of the community, present that idea, and if they felt it was good, they might give him a little advice. They would give him the money for that business upstart. But here's the catch. They wouldn't require an interest, but what they would say is, one day, once your business is successful, we're going to come to you for you to be a part of helping somebody else start their business. That has been common practice within modern times. I know of it. I had the opportunity in my early 20s to hear a friend present his case before a group of men for the business that he was wanting to start. And I watched how that was dealt with, and he had allowed me to participate in that so I could see how that procedure went. And it was really neat to watch that take place in the Jewish Community Center, and just kind of an awesome fulfillment of Scripture there. But going back to where I said it was partly to take care of those who were in poverty. Maybe somebody's house had burned down, they had lost their job, or sickness had incurred, and they needed a loan in order to keep from being in poverty or to get out of poverty. Well, they then could pay this back in time. That's also a part of where the indentured servitude did come into play. Somebody would work until they had paid that off, and that would have been agreed upon at the beginning. I did also want to point out, as far as the part of the gleaners in the field, we also get that picture in the New Testament Scriptures when Jesus and his disciples are out in the wheat fields, and they pick the heads of the wheat and roll them in their hands and blow the chaff away, and up pop the Pharisees. I always think of it as in a comical sense, like, what are they doing out here in the field? What were the Pharisees doing out in the field? It's as if they were just following Jesus and his disciples around, trying to catch them in something. And did that not consist of work? Them following them to try to trap them or catch them? But I don't know if you've ever had that opportunity. I have a few times, to be able to just pick a head of wheat and run it in your hand and blow the chaff away and eat the seeds, and it's really rather tasty. I don't know if it was a particular kind of wheat that I was eating or if all of it's like that, but it was very tasty and something I don't know, maybe it's the thrill of the moment. But Jesus does not see that as work, and if Christ doesn't see it as work, it's not work. But it's at the same time, it's not saying go out and harvest. And of course, we don't live under the old covenant laws now. We're in the new covenant. But as I've encouraged before to you in my commentaries, I would say do try to have a day of rest, a day that you can just relax in, and time that you can spend with the Lord. It's so amazing as we go through these chapters today with just how much they do connect with everyday life. But do keep in the heart of Christ and the mind of us being in the New Covenant Scriptures and in a period of grace as we move through these passages of Scripture today. I want to encourage you to take note of the parts that we go through here that apply to the New Testament Scriptures, whether it's even mentioning about not unequally yoking your animals, or where it even says don't put a donkey with your ox. And I think of that as that picture of where at times people date and even end up marrying somebody that they are completely incompatible with, that the person's not a believer, the person doesn't even attend church, or they're in a whole nother denomination than you, and then it's the question of, well, which church do you end up in, and you find yourself at odds and battling each other, and then where do the children go? And the Lord never intended that for us. He intended for us to be equally matched and to work together and for the two to become one. So I just want to encourage you with that today. This is all just, as I say, this as I went through these passages today, I was left with where to start, because there is so much here. There's also a lot of those parts that I remember first reading through this and being like, wow, that's in the Bible, and it has some wordings or things that kind of catch your attention a little bit as well. Brothers and sisters, I do hope and pray that your day has gone well. Until tomorrow, God bless.